welcome to the show. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be with you.
So, for everyone listening, it's Bren Ward here from the Wize Way, and I'm very honoured to have Gay with me here today. He's a bit of an outsider to our normal lineup of conversations on the Wize Way, and for your context, Gay, Wize is a bit of a passion project to start with. So, along with my two wonderful business partners, Ed and Jamie, who are in that poster behind me on the wall there. Um, we went on this mission 7 years ago to help public practice accounting firm owners, originally in Australia, on a journey of kind of getting themselves out of the prison that they'd built for themselves that they called their business, and helping them take steps towards being able to stabilize that business and then just step away from it and have more choices in life, ultimately achieving whatever their version of freedom was. And three Aussie blokes. I was here in Ireland, and the two other guys in Australia. And we never thought, we were happy if we got a couple of firms, listening into us and implementing what we suggested. But before we knew it, we had this incredible community in over 40 countries listening in and then starting to tell us that we were actually helping them make dramatic change in their business, which we're incredibly grateful for. Um, so now, 7 years on, we've got this thriving community of accounting and bookkeeping firm owners. We've got an amazing team across the world. And we're really passionate about helping our community achieve their goals. And for the conversation today, and I was listening to something that you said last night where your journey started as a healer, healing yourself. My introduction to you started from that journey myself of healing myself, and it really resonated with me and had a massive impact. But I just see so much of what you talk about in so many of your books really having an impact on our audience. And I'd love for you to touch on a few of those things today, if you're okay to.
Totally okay with that.
Brilliant. So before we get stuck into some of the tactical stuff, if you like, I wanted to go a little bit high level. And for the audience, those who may not have had the pleasure of coming across one of your 60-something books, I wanted to ask you, we're very passionate about mentoring and having a mentor in your life. And I just wanted to ask you, looking back over your life, was there a mentor or a significant guide in your life that had such a profound impact or a specific impact that has stayed with you and has seen how you've lived out your life?
Yes, I have. I've been blessed to have several folks like that, but the one that comes to mind immediately is Dwight Webb, who was a professor of mine in 1968, 69, and 70 when I was getting my master's degree at the University of New Hampshire in counseling. And Dwight Webb, the late Dwight Webb now, he passed on a few years ago, lived a rich life until 88 years of age. And Dwight Webb, he was one of my counseling professors, and he did several things for me that are just, I wouldn't be here without him. Because one thing he did is he spotted that I was a creative writer. And but that I was kind of bored writing normal theses and papers and that kind of thing because I could do it in my sleep. And he said, "Well, why don't you write a creative master's degree thesis?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, you like to write poetry," which I did. And he said, "Why don't you write a number of poems about the counseling process and have that be your master's thesis?" That just opened up a huge possibility for me. And then some magic happened. I turned in, I believe it was 37, something like that, poems about the counseling process. And Dwight picked out three of them and he said, "You've got to send these in to Leo Goldman at the counseling journal, the big counseling journal at the time."
Hmm.
And that had not occurred to me, the idea of
Hmm.
publishing them. And so I sent them in to Leo Goldman, and he published them in the
Wow.
journal. it was the first poetry they'd ever published, but it was a significant breakthrough because, like, at the next, um, annual conference, I did a seminar on the poetry of counseling. I had something like 300 people wedged into this big ballroom. And so they'd started publishing more and more creative things in the journal, and so I feel happy about, kind of setting a trend there. So Dwight was responsible for that, but here's the real magic. 2 professors at Stanford in the, PhD program there saw those, um, poems and that I was at the University of New Hampshire, and then Dwight Webb ended up recommending me to go to Stanford for my PhD.
Wow.
And that was a huge breakthrough because they only took something like 3 students a year, and to be one of those, it was just like, having the Mount Olympus of educational opportunity there, and the program at Stanford was just incredible. So I was there for 3 years, and but Dwight Webb, every step along the way, he was there, and then later on, I got to help him get one of his books published, and
Uh,
that was so satisfying to be able to have the circle come around.
that's incredible. Dwight was one of the people who tapped into that creativity or allowed you to express that, which now we're sitting here with 61 books published
Yeah. So far, I've got
so
9 in
far.
the pipeline.
Wow. So touching on that, Gay, 61 books, 500 TV shows, like it's an extraordinary creative outlet. Um, you said you got 9 books in the pipeline. What what at this stage, what really stokes your fire, about having these sorts of conversations and the 9 books that you've still got left to go?
Well, I love taking advantage of any new technology or new channel or outlet or platform to get our ideas out into the world because, like, I come from a time when there was no self-help books.
Mhm.
I started out before there were self-help books, and so you know, to see that channel develop and to contribute a number of self-help books, and then to see people like me getting on television.
Mhm.
Who ever heard of a psychologist or me and Katie, a couple, uh, getting on a show like Oprah, the next day after Tom Cruise had been on it.
Yeah.
That's a whole different thing. Also, at the University of Colorado, where I taught for 21 years, from 1974 to 1995, in the counseling psychology department there, they said, we're going to start a TV thing for people who aren't around the campus but want to take a course 300 miles away across the Rocky Mountains, and would any of you guys be interested? Boing, up
Mhm.
went my hand, because here's an opportunity to talk to people in 100 different communities on television. And so I taught that first course. I had like maybe 40 or 50 live people in the room. But it was really great to be able to craft things so that people at home could be able to do what the people in the room were doing. So it always turns me on to take advantage of getting the ideas out in a new format.
Mm.
Um, Same thing with downloads and videos and um, things like that. That's always turned me on. And also, I remember being at the University of Colorado, and I was in a department where there was a bunch of us on a long hall. There may be 10, 20 different professors, and I was the first person to get email. And I remember a couple of the other professors coming in and looking over my shoulder while I was doing email because I told them, "This is going to change the world, guys. This is fantastic. This is great." And it takes all the drudgery out of licking an envelope and stuffing, and especially for research because you can trade data back and forth. In those days, it
Mhm.
was very clunky to do it, but now it's very easy. But anyway, getting back to my point, I remember 2 professors looking over my shoulders and me doing it, and both of them saying, "Eh, I don't think that'd be very useful to me," and walking out, there's Hendricks doing this crazy new thing again, and
The
hope
big
I
one.
so anyway, I think that's one of the things that I love to do podcasts and things for, because 'cause they're kind of a new way I can. And thanks to, technology, I can sit here in my magnificent, home and with my cat on my lap, not at the moment, but,
Mm.
and actually at this very moment, Katie is out in our studio doing another
There you
podcast with someone.
go. It is incredible, and it still blows my mind. I can talk to my business partner 18,000 kilometers away instantly on this tiny little device. Like, it still doesn't comprehend it. But um, without going too far down the rabbit hole on that conversation or that topic, you've seen some pretty big technological revolutions in your time. What's your uh, what's your outlook on the current massive phase we're in with the AI revolution evolution?
Well, my response to it has been to include it in our work, because for the past, 4 or 5 months, I've had a team led by Steve Ray, from, MIT. He lives in Chicago now, but he's an MIT guy,
Hmm.
and, he's been in charge of developing our AI tool
Wow,
called the Coaches Portal.
brilliant.
And then just over the past month, we've been working on developing the voice aspect of it where, well, let's say you're walking along in Ireland and you all of a sudden want to know what Gay and Katie think about, what? Um, telling the truth in relationships, let's
Hmm.
say, because you're in a squabble with your girlfriend. You can say, "Hey, Gay, Katie, what's your big take on whether it's a good idea to tell the truth? And how do I tell the truth in a way that's gentle to my partner?"
Hmm.
Boom, then you get us talking to you in, your ears while you're walking along there in Ireland, and
I
so
love it.
that's what we're doing with AI is we've fed our proprietary training materials. We have a 900-page training manual, and, gradually, when people get it, they can barely carry it away, but now we fed it into the AI portal, and so anybody can that subscribes to our AI portal can pull out anything they want to do from our tools and techniques, and, there's 200 videos in there, so if you wanna have us explain something to you on video, you can just say, show me a video of you talking about how to take responsibility or how to tell the truth or how to appreciate someone or or how to breathe. We're big on somatic processes here.
Hmm.
We include the whole being in our work, because so many things that come up in relationship are old things that are stored down in the body somewhere up in your shoulders or down in your chest or in your belly, and so unless you're willing to become a kind of a master of your whole being, it's hard to have a good relationship, because if there's any unloved part of yourself, you can bet it's going to come out in a close relationship.
Absolutely. And on that topic, it would be remiss not to mention your wonderful partner who you've shared this journey with, Katie. And I think from what I saw, you said October is your anniversary month and you celebrate the whole of October. Is that right?
Yes, well, thank you for picking
Uh,
that up. First of all, you must have done some research on
uh,
it. Yeah. So, yes, we got married 3 times in the month of October in 1981. So this, I believe, is our official 44th.
wow.
We met in January 1980. So we've been together 45 plus years. But anyway, why we got married 3 times in the month of October is that the first one was an official one, with a judge and all of that. And
Hmm.
then a second one was with ourselves privately up on a mountaintop.
Wow.
And that's where we made our vows, the ones that are in Conscious Loving and our other books. That's where we made those original vows, like promising to do our best to take responsibility when things came up rather than blaming, and speaking honestly rather than defending, and all of the things that are valuable to a close relationship. So we spoke those to ourselves up on a mountaintop, and that was quite a magical moment because
Incredible.
yeah, it was beautiful there in Colorado. It was this glorious day, but when we did that, Katie looked up into the sky and said, "Oh, look." And there was a hawk circling around above us. And we said, "Oh my goodness, a blessing." And so as we spoke our vows and then we looked up again and there were two
No.
hawks circling up there. And so we didn't miss the cosmic
Mhm.
significance of that. But then we got married in a sensational, climactic way on Halloween in the month of October
Right.
in California with our California friends. And in that, we feel so blessed because it was a wonderful event. But in that, one of the people, Mary Graham, found a poem that she read to us by the Jungian um, Sheila Moon,
Right.
and called The Fool and His Bride. And it is a poem that sounds like it was written for me and Katie. Everybody was just stunned by it. And at the time, Sheila Moon, I couldn't thank her in person for it because she had gone into Alzheimer's, bless her heart, and then she has since passed away. But I feel like that poem, which we put in Conscious Loving, in our book Conscious Loving, right at the first part of it, was such a blessing to our relationship that we still get that out in the month of October. And so anyway, we stopped trying to remember, was that the 9th when we did the judge thing or the 10th when we went up on the mountaintop? So we just celebrate the whole month
It's
and then we
October.
come to a big climax on Halloween.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great tradition. Um, with your journey with Katie and everything that you've achieved together and done together and worked through together, I thought when I was looking at uh, the questions I really wanted to dive in with you, quite a few of them are tactical with the business owners within our community, which I think is important. But there was one that just stood out for me that I feel transcends both working with business partners and also into our personal lives, working and growing with our partners. And I just wanted to get your insights on looking at over years, we grow as individuals, we change as individuals. Um, and where we may have been aligned in the past on things and our principles and our values, they may change over time as well. Um, how do we keep ensuring that we come back together on that journey? Because there's a certain fear, certainly with the business owners that we work with, that if they actually achieve the success that they really feel they want to, they may grow apart from their significant other or their partner. So, any thoughts on what you'd say to someone asking that question?
Very much so. And I've been blessed with that question many hundreds of
I
times in
thought,
various
I
ways.
thought so. Yeah.
Well, I want to interject a couple of things into our
Mhm.
conversation. One is something that we discovered in ourselves and in relationships and out there in the business world too. We call it here the upper limit problem.
Mm.
And the upper limit problem is the tendency to mess up or sabotage yourself when things have started to go even better. And so we kept noticing this, especially in our corporate consulting, because a classic example of the upper limit problem would be uh, we had a client who was a middle level engineering manager at a firm and had developed a big product that they finally released, and it was making money hand over fist. And one Friday afternoon, the CEO came by my VP's office and said, "Congratulations, attaboy, we love you, and here's a bonus check for $150,000." At the time, the engineer that we were working with was maybe making 180 to 220, something like that.
Mhm.
So $150,000 in his hand was enough to trip a switch. Now, I've worked with billionaires since then that it takes a lot more than that to trip their switch. There's always a switch and it always gets tripped. What happened was he felt like the king of the world. And the boss said, take the rest of the afternoon, go home and tell your wife and family the good news. It was Friday afternoon. And so he gets in his car 2 o'clock in the afternoon, drives to his beautiful home, parks, goes in, and proceeds to have the biggest argument with his wife that ultimately involved the kids that he'd ever had in 12 years of marriage. How can that be? Well, I kept seeing things like that over and over. And sometimes it would be the other way around. Like another, I keep picking on high tech entrepreneurs, but that's who I end up seeing a lot of times.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's in other businesses too. But it's just that over the last 20 years, I was around when Silicon Valley got started at Stanford. I was still a grad student there and then became a research psychologist at Stanford. So I got to
It
work
was
with
close.
yeah, it was very close to home. And so I have a kind of uh, a love in my heart for high tech folks that
Mhm,
oftentimes, can get to be a billionaire while still carrying around the emotional maturity of a 19-year-old,
mhm,
which is when they started to get rich by dropping out of Harvard, let's say, And so a lot of times, having a lot of money when you're young is not exactly a friendly thing to your
mm,
nervous system. But so sometimes, like one of my high tech guys, uh, had a lavish wedding, 150 guests at the faraway location and all of that, and then came back to work, and his entire executive team blew up at him. So he'd had this gigantic high.
mhm,
Then he came back into the quote real world and bloom, had this big blow up. Now, what accounts for that kind of thing? I started looking into this 50 years ago because I kept seeing it happen. I kept seeing it happen in my own life. I was fat at the time and I would go on a diet and things would go great for about 3 days. And then I would get an overpowering desire for something I didn't even think about much before my diet. I'd suddenly get peanut butter lust or something, and I'd just have to have it and I'd blow my diet. So that's the upper limit problem in
mm,
action. So here's what's underneath the upper limit problem, Brent. And why this is so important is it's everywhere. It's not just in business, it's at home and it's in our health. The upper limit problem is triggered by old limiting beliefs that we store way down in the basement of our minds and bodies. And they're literally in our bodies as well as in our minds. And so you have to take it on kind of as a whole person project rather than it's not like software where you can install a new program in and everything runs differently then.
mhm,
It doesn't work quite that way because it's whole body software that has to be installed, not just in your mental apparatus. And so, for example, we have three feeling zones of our body that carry a lot of stored feeling. Like one is the shoulders and back of the neck, and a lot of places that flare up when we get angry. If the
yeah.
hackles on a
Of
cat.
grabbing the neck. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And but they don't teach that in school. I had to become a graduate student before anybody ever told me that?
Mm,
Like, if a person's talking to you and they're touching the back of their neck a lot and everything, take a wild guess that they're
yeah,
angry about something. Or
mm,
if they're touching their chest a lot, take a wild guess that they're sad or hurt about something. Bellies is a fear zone. So I want to teach people that in the first grade, because there's no reason why we
yeah,
shouldn't. And so underlying the upper limit problem, what's underneath it, what's it makes it keep happening, is old upper limit beliefs that are stored down there. Like, I don't deserve the good things of life for whatever reason. I'm the wrong color. I'm the wrong weight. I'm the wrong height. I'm the wrong whatever. I don't have enough smarts. I've got too much smarts. Whatever it is, I don't deserve the good things of life because of what happened to me in the past so that's a limiting belief because it's not true.
Mm.
that you could easily have the past you have and make a commitment to enjoying the good things of life now. And the second thing that's underneath all upper limit problems is not only negative beliefs, but also old feelings that we haven't owned in ourselves. Like a lot of people just haven't ever owned their anger and they haven't ever owned their grief. My mom, uh, she was a heavy smoker, and I don't think she ever let herself feel the grief of her husband dying. And unfortunately, he died while she was pregnant with me. So my whole upbringing, I think she was just going further and further into addictions to keep from owning that grief and
Feeling.
feeling it, because she had such a stricture on not letting anybody underneath her strength, and so
Mhm.
she had to smoke it away instead. And so addictions run rampant in a lot of people's lives, including my own family. And I feel very blessed to escape that in myself, although I had my overweight problems earlier in my life. So fear is big underneath our upper limit beliefs. So pay
Mhm.
attention to fear, because anytime you're hurt in your heart or angry, you're also feeling scared about something, but it's a feeling that you can't cry out fear or you can't pound pillows to get you rid of it fear. You have to embody it and put it to a good use. And the use I want to put it to is fueling your genius in you.
Mm.
Um, Energy can't be destroyed or created. It's there. The energy of our feelings is always there, and we have to turn that into something productive. There's no value to keep on being angry for 30 years about something that happened 30 years ago. You can acknowledge it, but you don't want to carry it around in the back of your neck. But we get people all the time here who are having daily headaches because they're trying to carry around their
It's
emotions
stored.
and stored in the back of their head. Usually anger is a tough one for that area, and low back pain also. A lot of people
Really.
stuff anger in the low back area of their life. Yeah, in fact, if I could give a book recommendation, John Sarno, MD, Sarno, MD, fabulous study of low back pain. He was the Rusk Rehab low back guy in New York for 40 years and just a genius of curing low back pain. And he treated most of it as stored anger and got people comfortable with their anger. And so
Amazing.
a lot of his famous clients, like Howard Stern or Rosie O'Donnell, give him a lot of credit for having them transform their rage into something that was useful to them in their life.
Rosie O'Donnell's our neighbor here now, and there's still a good bit of rage going on with some certain
I
friends
don't
in the
I don't
States.
I we haven't seen what the new skinny Rosie is up to. We know what the chubby Rosie is up to, but bless her heart, she's making changes in her life, and
Mm,
um, in her heart, I have some of the same sympathies that she has, and
mm.
so I would be the last to condemn anything that Rosie does.
No, she's brought some life to the community here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, when we have, ordinary good people, because everything you've just spoken about there, it it's not a certain subsection of the human population, I'm sure it's everyone. So
Mhm.
we're all in that camp. We have great, ordinary, hardworking business owners knock on our door, and they normally knock on our door really frustrated. They're they're burnt out, they're stressed out, they're at the end of their tether with this thing that they've created and the impact that it's had on their life. And often the first thing they want to do is fix the business. It's all about fixing the business. It's all about better marketing and better team and
Mhm.
better
Mhm.
better this and that. And having now been in the space for 15 plus years and you come across the work from the likes of yourself, It's like we can fix the business. We can work on the business as much as we like, but for some reason, we always end up back in this position of I still don't feel free. I still feel stuck. Still don't have time. So what what do you say to that person knocking on our door at Wise, that accounting firm owner?
Well, first of all, success in business is only partly about the business stuff. A lot of it has to do with your underlying intentions and any old programming that's getting in the way of you living out your full expression.
Mhm,
The way we put it here is that everybody has 4 zones that they're operating in, and one of those is the zone of incompetence, where you're doing things that you're not very good at and you don't like. We
mhm,
say, as quickly as possible, get rid of those, delegate those, find some way out of that. The second zone is the zone of competence, where you're doing things that you're good at, but somebody else could do just as well.
mhm,
In my Big Leap book, I talk about the moment of enlightenment where I'm standing in the line at the post office at Christmas time waiting to mail a package, and there's 15 people in the line and one clerk, and everybody's got a package. And I realized I had already spent 15 minutes in the line, and I realized, well, at that time, I was charging $1,000 an hour for my consultations, and so in 15 minutes, I'd eaten up $250 worth of time to mail a $10
mhm,
package, and so that was a moment of, "Oh my gosh, here I am in my zone of competence." I've never done that again, by the way,
mhm,
and the 2nd and 3rd or 3rd and 4th zones that are so important, though, the third zone is the zone of excellence, where you're doing stuff you're good at. You're getting lots of attaboys and attagirls and yay, and they're electing you chairman and say, do more of this. And your spouse is saying, oh, yeah, we like the new country club. And
mhm,
oh, can we fly first class again this week? And all of those kinds of things are beginning to mount up in your life. And so that's a problem that you stay in the excellence zone too long.
mhm,
And what's beckoning, though, and what I've helped people discover, fortunately, thousands of times now, millions of times, I guess, now, including the books, is that we all have within us a genius zone. That's
mhm,
the fourth zone. You haven't topped out in your zone of excellence. There's this other thing that's beckoning, and it's made of two components, and you can tell right this minute where you are with both of them. One is you're doing what you most love to do, and you're doing something that makes a contribution that feels satisfying to you. These are deathbed issues. It doesn't matter if you're a young sprout such as yourself or an old geezer such as myself, you've got the same problem, which is to express and make the biggest contribution you can.
mhm,
Because, I mean, I've had I guess you'd call it the pleasure of being at the deathbed of people when they're exiting this life. And I can tell you, nobody's, even if it's a billionaire, nobody's talking about the office or how much money, how well their stock did. Oh, no. They're saying, oh, why did I disown my brother 40 years ago because he was an alcoholic? Oh, why did I do that? Why couldn't I have been more compassionate? Those kinds of things. So, what I'm talking about are the big issues of our life. And one of them
mhm,
is, can I get out of my own way? Can I
mm,
get my programming out of the way? And it's all upper limit programming, and I show in the Big Leap about all the different ways that show, the different limiting beliefs and how those impact different um, lack of success later on. And so we need to take it on as an inside job. A place to start is starting with commitment, because commitment, you can tell at any given moment whether you're living a commitment to something.
mhm.
If you think you're committed to your health, but you're smoking 2 packs a day, your
Something's
body's
off.
gonna give you feedback on
Yeah.
that eventually, on that lack of integrity. Or, like Oh, this is a great example of back pain too. We had a business, I mean, a executive here who owned a big chain of resorts and hotels and things like that around the world. And they lived in a foreign country. And in the course of our work with them, when they finally came here, he had had back pain for years. And he'd had something, I'm thinking of like 175 chiropractic adjustments over that period of time and some large number of massages, got a massage every week and acupuncture to make his back go away. Well, my treatment took 10 seconds. And if you're willing to go radical, a lot of things can be solved in 10 seconds. My 10-second treatment was, what did you start lying about 3.5 years ago? And what are you still lying about? Um, and, it was like reading a comic book. It was so obvious. 3.5 years ago, he'd started having sex every Tuesday with his secretary, and that got worse, but he couldn't fire his secretary, and he couldn't tell his wife, and so here he is acting out this thing every week and gradually trying to fix the back pain,
Wow.
but and I'm not saying that all back pain has to do with infidelity. Don't everybody run home and confront their partner about that.
Yeah.
Uh, it has to do with lots of different things, but the interesting thing was 2 things. Wow, still blows my mind. His back pain went away after the big confession, and it blew up their relationship for about 3 months. They gradually worked it out, but during those months, she lost like 40 some pounds,
Wow.
and she didn't even go on a diet. It sort of fell off her. And how many times does stress cause our addictions, like
Yeah.
a lot? I
Yeah.
remember my friend David Hubbard, who's a great neurologist down in San Diego, when he was in medical school. I remember him excitedly calling me because I was still at Stanford in the graduate program, and he'd gone on to medical school before I graduated. He said, I just finished my first day in a hospital and I learned something I'd never known before. And I said, what is it? And he said, I learned why everybody's in here. And I said, oh, because I thought of it as a complicated set of diseases. And he said,
Mm.
everybody in here is because of smoking, drinking, obesity,
Yeah.
or stress.
Wow.
Wow. That was a wake up call to me that all of our health dollars are into fixing 3 things mainly. I mean, smoking kills 1,000 people a day here in the
Yeah.
US anyway, and, when I've been into Ireland, I don't think they've got less of a problem than we do with that over here.
We're up
And,
there.
yeah, uh, so, I think that so many of the things that we blame on physical illness have to do with how we live our lives and the lifestyle choices we make. And one of those is in the area of relationship. And so, hey, by the way, given your audience, I should say that I narrowly missed being an accountant in my life. I'd probably been the world's worst, but when I was a little boy, I remember asking my grandmother, who I was very close to. She lived next door and she
Mm.
pretty much raised me. And I said, you've seen me around. I was, 9 or 10 years old, and I was trying to figure out what do I want to do with my life. Because this was Leesburg, Florida, 10,000 people. There was nothing like a psychologist or a psychiatrist in town. There was 10 Baptist ministers. They were all doing pretty well, uh, but this was in the deep South. And so my grandmother said, why don't you become an accountant? And I said, oh, and I said, I'm not especially great at math. Why would you say that? And then when I pinned her down about it, she says, during the Great Depression, they all had jobs. Oh, I didn't realize that I was
Uh,
being
uh,
giving guidance counseling by somebody that was, working out of the Great Depression on this time.
Safeguarding. Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, my high school counseling teacher gave me a test and made me realize suddenly that there are 3 things I should avoid in life. The absolute thing I should really avoid is being a farmer. The absolute other thing I
Mhm.
should avoid is accountancy or anything to do with numbers. And the third was anything to do with working outside with your hands. And so I've avoided all of those things.
You narrowly escaped, and
Narrowly
just
escaped. I do this heavy lifting with my fingers called typing.
yeah, yeah. And I love my cohort, but we had you escape to the right place. So we're not happy we lost you to we're okay losing you to the profession, I should say. Um, okay, I'd really like to. I know we can't do the upper limit problem in the genius zone a whole heap of justice in the time that we've got together today, but I wanted to send people on their next step of their journey if they haven't been down the road of The Big Leap or some of your other books on the topic. So for me, it's about creating awareness. So a lot of the things that you've mentioned today starts to spark up the idea of, well, maybe the neck pain or the back pain, or just starting to have a bit more awareness on maybe there actually is something here and it's not a business tactic that I need to fix. So what, in the spirit of creating more awareness and sending them on this journey, where where should we look to? What questions should we be asking? What things should we be doing to go on the journey?
I want to hark back to a point I made about commitment, because commitment, almost nobody understands the power of commitment because, like you make a commitment to going on a diet and then you blow it in 3 days. You say, okay, well, uh, I guess I'm destined to be um, that weight. And so what happens is commitment gets a bad name because it doesn't include a second factor that's even more important than commitment itself. And that is how to make a recommitment once you slipped off. And here we stress recommitment because it's the ability to get back on the horse after you've been dumped off. That's
Hmm.
the key thing, because all of us are going to get dumped off the horse and we're going to have losses and things like that. As a matter of fact, let me just take this opportunity. I've never had this opportunity I've never been on an accountant's program before, but let me give a great deal of heartfelt appreciation to our accountant, Mr. David Ellis, who has been working with us for many, many years and happens to be freshly on our mind because we had a massive influx of cash a couple of years ago. And we were looking at, like a $500,000 tax bill. And so David crafted it out. So, it's still, you know, plenty of money, but it's not a
S-
cry
Sizable,
and
but not as
sob,
painful. Yeah.
you know. And, so appreciations to David and everybody who labors to do good for folks like myself. I had an author's dream come true a year or two ago where a big company offered me a giant chunk of cash for the rights to collect my royalties after I'm no longer on the planet.
Amazing.
And so I thought about that. I thought, at the time I was 79, I'm 80 now. At the time I thought, I'm 79. What would be the downside of taking a bunch of money right now instead of having somebody collect it after I'm dead? And so I gave it about point 0.2
Easy
seconds
choice.
of thought. Anyway, David Ellis has been working on it all year long,
He's
and
in your
bless his
corner.
heart, he came up last night with the magic number, and
Good
Katie and
man.
I breathed a sigh of relief.
That's amazing. They are they're great people that do great work, um, but they also suffer in silence a lot as
Yeah.
well. Because I do feel with our profession that there is a false perception that need to show up as the business owner. You know, accountants have to have it all together because we're giving advice to every other business. So there is pain behind the curtains of it because they don't have it all figured out. And a lot of them do aspire to be in a position working in their genius zone, whether they know it to be that or not, of helping their clients more, like David's done with yourself, as opposed to working in that chaotic rhythm of tax and compliance. So to move towards that genius zone, is it fair to say that we can't step into that zone until we've really identified and addressed the ceiling that these upper limit problems place on our potential?
Say first, make the commitment.
Mhm,
Make a simple commitment. And here's one I use, and I'd love for you all to take it on. And the idea is I commit to expanding my genius every day of my life.
mhm,
I commit to expanding my genius zone every day of my life. So make a commitment to that and write that down on a little piece of paper and stick it on your dashboard or stick it on your mirror, because you need repeated inoculations of a good idea in order to
mhm,
get it established in you. But if you could just make this minor, tiny adjustment of making a commitment to it, that opens up the door.
mhm.
And then occasionally you'll say, "Oh, I realize I forgot that. And I have been looking at it on my mirror for 2 weeks and haven't even seen it, and then you'll see it again. And so gradually keep introducing this new idea to you and then begin to looking at what's under the hood. What's under there that's making that ticking noise that starts ticking every time I get to 90 miles an hour, and so gradually fixing those things using, I've tried to write my best guidebook in The Big Leap.
Mhm.
But there may be other tools and technologies you could use to do that. But whatever it is, take it on as an inside job and make a commitment to expanding your genius zone and get willing to remove all the little glitches and itches and limitations that are in your way, that life wants you to be a genius. That's the way I like to think of it.
So, for those aspiring to head in that direction, give us a taste of what the genius zone feels like. Like, what is
Ooh,
life like in the genius zone?
okay. Well, let me just tell you, uh, I live in a place that I love living in, a house that I love living in, and a part of the world I love living in. I've lived in it now for 25 years, and it has magnificent plantings all over it. And so I live in a place I love. So I wake up every day loving my life. And then carefully, about 30 years ago, I started making choices. Is this in my genius zone or not? When I would be offered whatever it was.
Mhm.
And I gradually started only doing things that was in my genius zone. So for the last 20 or 30 years, I've only done things that I love to do and that, in my opinion, make my biggest contribution. And so that's what I've been up to. I just don't do stuff that I don't like to do or don't feel that I'm suited to do. I get, at this stage of the game, offered tons of stuff that are not exactly in my genius zone. A big Europe.
An easy answer.
Yeah, I give you. There's a piece of candy that you've seen on counters all over Europe, and they came to me at one point, and they say, "We're opening up the United States, and we're looking for a person to be our spokesman. And you wrote a book called Learning to Love Yourself, and we've decided that our whole pitch is going to be learning to love yourself by eating our chocolate." And and here's a bunch of
So
money. We'd like to get you on our side with this. And so, oh, and so I had to go through a little bit of anguish about that, because at the time they offered it, I wasn't living quite the life I was living now. But anyway, that's the second thing that I think that everybody needs to do is. So I've been doing that. I've been teaching my, or what do you call it? Applying my own methods for
mhm.
the last 30 or 40 years. There's an old Turkish saying that says, if a man finds a cure for baldness, he will surely first use it on himself. And I used my own medicine to create, a life where you know, we, you know, we have a little bit of light planning we do every year where we sit down on New Year's Day and usually go out to a particular place we like and sit on a bench in a place we like and think about how we want to craft this year. What do we
Mm,
want? And so we do yearly stuff, but we also do bigger things that last a lifetime. Like one of our mantras that we live out of is that all of our investments are paying good dividends and doing good in the world. That's the idea.
Mhm.
And so at this stage of the game, we have a large investment portfolio that we want to be doing good in the world. And so we've crafted investments that we like what they're doing. And so we feel good about that. So the idea is to get yourself really aligned with your deepest values and what you really deeply want in life. And then things really start flowing much easier once you're on the right path. Like in the beautiful Kathleen Rain's poem, The Invisible Way, she said, birds have an invisible way across the sky. How do they do that? Well, we can have the same kind of thing. We can get on the right wavelength in life according to our own values by simply aligning with what we most want. And my big suggestion in the big leap is to focus on what your genius zone is. You may not know it at first, but a little bit of inquiry, gentle wonder and inquiry will be able to reveal that for you.
Okay, I think that's a perfect place to land a plane on. I must say the big leap had a significant impact on my own life. Literally the first few pages where you say, if you're reading this and you're thinking about this, and I was just like, yes, yes, yes. And I just got absolutely addicted to the book and creating that awareness around the upper limit problems and heading towards that zone of genius has had a profound impact on my own life. And I really wanted to share that message with our audience. So thank you so much for doing that. And thank you for the work that you've put out. Um, I have one final question to ask if you don't mind. And I thought I'd throw a bit of a curveball at you because you've done thousands of these interviews and podcasts and everything. But I was curious, what's one question that you wish someone would have asked you, but no one ever has?
Mm. Whoa, that's a good one. Well, let me just think of what the question would be. I know the topic would be, it would be tell me about how to use wonder as a
Mm,
practical tool. Um, what what's the ultimate power and use to which you can put wonder? And so you can't see it from here, but on my wall over here, there's a photograph of me uh, with the big word wonder written beside it. And some photographer was traveling around the United States making pictures of people, and he asked me if I would let him take a picture of me. And then at the end of the picture session, he said, "Write a word that's sacred to you here next to your picture." And I wrote wonder. And
amazing.
here's why: because wonder, I believe, is an unused superpower. That when you wonder, genuinely wonder about something, you're free from your past conceptions about it.
Mhm.
And you're free from whatever the future use of it might be. You can't sit here and wonder, oh, I wonder what the best thing I could create would be to make me $1 million tomorrow. Wonder doesn't work like that. Wonder is good for solving problems that nothing else can solve. Like Einstein in his notebooks, he wondered about a particular problem for 27 years straight every day until he finally, "Oh,
Mm.
I got that." So be willing to go straight to the universe with an open heart of wonder, like, "Hmm, what do I need to do to transform my marriage?" Or, "Hmm, what's happening at work that I'm not seeing that's causing this little niggle in me, this little stressful niggle in me at the end of the day?" Asking big questions, but leaving huge room to answer them in. So you're not coming in with your old past preconceptions.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. And thank you to Katie. So I wish you both a wonderful anniversary month. Look forward to the next 9 books coming out. And for anyone who's wanting to go down the path of exploring more about your work and some of the books we've mentioned today, how do we best find you?
Well, yes, and I should also mention that in about a week or two, and I don't know when this is being broadcast, but um, in October, in the month of October, we're going to be releasing my memoir. It's called Loving Life. The subtitle is Tales of My Wondrous Journey. And Loving Life will be out, I think, on October 14th, but you'll be able to find it. And I'm very excited about that because I've been working on it on off for 10 years and gradually finally able to get it out into the world.
That makes two of us.
Yes.
Yeah,
And the second thing is Hendricks.com, Hendricks.com was one of the first websites on the internet, I'm happy to say, way back
amazing.
30 years ago. And so it's now in its 116th interaction, I think. And we're very proud of our website. We got tons of stuff there and lots of things that you can do there and lots of free videos and things like that. So Hendricks.com.
Perfect. Perfect. Gay, thank you so much for your time. And again, it was an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. It was great talking to you too. I hope you enjoy your life there. And if you are a Guinness man, sink a pint for me sometime.
I will. And if you're ever in this part of the world, you're more than welcome to clink a few pint glasses together.
Well, good. Well, I don't know if I will be or not, but I certainly will look you up. I have a bunch of invitations along that line. So it'll be a massive Guinness filled weekend if I do come to town.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.